UNESCO since 2009. She is the first woman to have been elected head of the organization, and it's a 70-year history. Madam Director General graduated from Moscow State Institute of International Relations, Bogimo, and studied in the University of Maryland and Harvard University. Madam Bokova joined the Bulgarian Foreign Ministry in 1977. She was Minister for Foreign Affairs from 1995 to 1997, and subsequently Ambassador of Bulgaria to France, Monaco, and UNESCO. Throughout her diplomatic career, she promoted Bulgaria's membership to the EU, as well as dialogues on human rights issues. Today, Madam Director General will give you a 30-minute lecture on the topic of new diplomacy and soft power for new times, with a focus to UNESCO's partnership with the Republic of Korea. And then I expect about 20-minute lively discussions with diplomat candidates following her lecture. It is not coincident that we have several classes in our program relating to this topic, new diplomacy and soft power. So this special lecture will be very much relevant to our program and surely broaden our perspective on the role and functions of international organizations. So welcome Madam Director General with a big hand.
Good morning, dear students. Good morning, Chancellor Dr. Yoon Duk-min, Chancellor of the Korean National Diplomatic Academy. Dear professors, I'm indeed very honored by this opportunity to speak to the Korean National Diplomatic Academy. I know that your diplomatic academy was first established in 1963. 50 years ago last year. I know that you celebrated your anniversary and refounded in March 2012. Hosting the renowned Institute for Foreign Affairs and National Security, I believe the Academy is set to become a world-class institution of higher learning for career diplomats. The vision and experience of Korean diplomacy is already heard across the world stage, not least thanks to the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, and the Diplomatic Academy will amplify this ever more in times of change. Having myself been trained as a professional diplomat, I can testify that diplomacy is transforming nowadays deeply. If I may, let me cite the Chancellor of the Diplomatic Academy, Dr. Yoon Duk-min, speaking last October. This is an era, you said, Chancellor, when diplomacy is not just about meeting your counterpart high-level officials, but that a public diplomacy where civilians are talking to each other. So diplomacy indeed is evolving in a new world where we need new kinds of diplomats. We are living in an increasingly connected international order where new actors are rising, and the role of international organizations as well as civil society has never been so great. Starting with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, international law has developed rapidly, and the cause of human rights has spread across the globe. In this context, governance is becoming more complex, more global, and I would say more multi-leveled. Interdependence is blurring the lines between the domestic and the foreign, and the space for national policy is changing. We see the rise of new forms of power, including what has been called soft power or smart power. We see the rise also of new countries of global prominence, and including your country, the Republic of Korea, which I would like particularly to underline. Exchanges are deepening across borders as technology knits societies closer together. And all of this is opening new opportunities for dialogue and cooperation. At the same time, the world faces increasing pressure. Pressure from demographic boom, from deepening inequalities, from the pressures of climate change. Conflicts remain aflame, leaving millions defenseless in the face of tragic violence. In Mali, in Syria, we have seen culture and heritage under attack. In other regions, culture and heritage face pressures from urbanization, from climate change. With globalization, identities and values are moving to the front of international politics. People today live closer together than ever before, but this does not mean there is more understanding. Societies are more diverse, but intolerance in some parts of the world is on the rise. This is why the role of Korean National Diplomatic Academy is so important. Change calls not for less diplomacy, but for more and sharper diplomacy. Diplomacy is coming back to the world stage. The Diplomatic Academy is the place to learn about this new world, to acquire skills to shape it for the greater good. This calls on us to rethink the nature of diplomacy. An Italian writer and diplomat, Daniel Vare, once said, "Diplomacy is the art of letting someone else have your way." The complexity of challenges today requires us, I believe, to rethink the opposition between my way and your way, to craft a new our way. We need collective answers to difficult new questions. Questions about the meaning of progress, about the foundations of peace and sustainability. Perhaps most fundamentally, how can we build the future we want for all? I take this notion from the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development held in Rio de Janeiro in 2012, whose outcome document was entitled "The Future We Want." For decades, development was measured first and foremost by economic indicators. Human development then began to be assessed with wider indicators, including life expectancy, educational attainment, and security. We need new thinking once again to craft a new paradigm of sustainable human development that takes in humanity as a whole. No single country can build sustainable human development alone. Climate change, the loss of biodiversity, water pollution do not respect borders. This was the core message of the Rio+20 conference in 2012. Nor can sustainability be a matter for governments alone. It must engage all parts of society, including private sector and civil society. Sustainability has deeper roots than financial and economic assets. It is about enhancing the rights and dignity of every woman and man through quality education, by safeguarding heritage, by harnessing the power of the sciences, by learning to live together. This is UNESCO's message today, and it has been at the heart of our mandate since 1945. As you know, our Constitution opens with the following words: "Since wars begin in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that the defenses of peace must be constructed." At UNESCO, we never tire in repeating these words, because they remain inspiring at a time when societies face steep obstacles, when global challenges call for urgent action. Far from resisting change, I believe we must embrace it together and shape it in positive directions. This is what I mean by calling for a new humanism. This is really an appeal to invest in the rights, dignity, and capabilities of every woman and man. We need today a new vision of development where every citizen feels a sense of responsibility towards others and for the safeguarding of our planet. This is also why the experience of the Republic of Korea is so important. From the ruins of war, Korea is today the world's 13th economy. From an aid recipient, Korea is today a growing donor. For a relatively small country, Korea's soft power, its cultural dynamism, is heard today across the globe, matching some of the big powers. Countries cannot develop fully if they only focus on the economy, if parts of society are left behind, if the future is mortgaged against short-term gain. The Republic of Korea provides a powerful example of this wisdom, especially the importance of education. In the hall of UNESCO in Paris, there is a Korean science textbook printed in 1956 with UNESCO support that was used by the boy who became the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Ban Ki-moon. I see the Republic of Korea as an example of the soft power we need for the 21st century. A country deeply committed to effective multilateralism, deeply engaged with sharing its strength. We saw Korea's leadership in hosting the 2010 G20 summit as the first non-G8 country. We saw this at the 4th High-Level Forum on Aid Effectiveness held in Busan in 2011, which I was honored to attend. I saw Korean leadership at the Expo Yoso 2012 in the Living Ocean and Coast, which testifies to Korea's global role on a core issue for sustainable development. Let me add here that Korea is a leading advocate of UNESCO's work for sustainable water management. This includes Korea's intention to host the 7th World Water Forum in 2015, for which I'm grateful. The decision by the government to increase official development assistance from 0.12% to 0.25% of gross national income by the year 2015 embodies this deep commitment to positive global change. Your country is the only one in the world to have moved so quickly from being a recipient of international development assistance to become a donor and a member of the OECD Development Assistance Committee. This is, I believe, a breathtaking story of success that draws on values that are deeply rooted in Korean society and on a clear vision of peace and development. So, my dear friends, the same vision underpins the deep partnership today between UNESCO and the Republic of Korea. Let me take this opportunity to pay tribute to the Korean National Commission for UNESCO and its Secretary General, Min Dong-suk, on the occasion of its 60th anniversary that we are celebrating today. I thank the National Commission for the strength of its leadership, embodied also in its new vision for the future. Korea is working with UNESCO to share its experience across the world. This is reflected in the BEAR program, Better Education for Africa's Rise, where Korea has partnered with UNESCO to strengthen technical and vocational education and training in Botswana, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Malawi, Namibia, and Zambia. This is reflected also in our efforts in the Asia and Pacific region to harness the power of new technologies to enhance the quality and equity of education. This includes a focus on girls' and women's empowerment through education. And let me add that I was deeply honored to receive an honorary doctorate from the Venerable Iowa Women's University in 2010. UNESCO's Education for All Global campaign will culminate with the World Conference on Education that will be held in Incheon next year to review progress since the year 2000 and set a new global education agenda. In this respect, I thank the Republic of Korea for its outstanding support to the Global Education First initiative, launched by the United Nations Secretary General and steered forward by UNESCO. This initiative is driven by three goals: getting every child to school, enhancing the quality of learning, and fostering global citizenship through education. Last September, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and of Education, along with the Asia-Pacific Center of Education for International Understanding, a UNESCO Category 2 center, organized a consultation on global citizenship. This was a groundbreaking step towards crafting the education we need for the 21st century. And I know the Republic of Korea is engaged in strengthening the citizenship dimension of its own education system. This is linked also to Korea's promotion of arts education, starting with the International Arts Education Week, an initiative adopted by UNESCO's General Assembly, and that we are holding every May in Paris and around the world. And this is a decision also that was based on the 2010 Seoul World Conference on Arts Education. So I wish to highlight also Korea's leadership in promoting literacy through UNESCO King Sejong Literacy Prize, launched in 1989 in honor of the King Sejong, creator of the Korean alphabet, Hangul. Let me add here UNESCO's cooperation with Korea's private sector, embodied in our partnership with Samsung to advance education for sustainable development in Vietnam, another example of the soft power the world needs today. We at UNESCO say very often that culture is the ultimate source of soft power today, and the Republic of Korea knows this intimately. Korea boasts today 10 sites of universal significance on the UNESCO World Heritage List. I have seen for myself the stunning Bugaksa Temple and its monumental statue of the Buddha, and I have experienced vibrant age-old customs at the Yangdong village in the I hope I pronounce it well, Jeongju area. Korea's ancient culture is embodied in the Aryang, the tradition of lyric folk song, as well as the Kimjang, both inscribed on the UNESCO representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Let me highlight here the role of the International Information and Networking Center for Intangible Cultural Heritage in the Asia-Pacific region, a UNESCO regional center, in taking forward the goals we share. Our joint message is clear. No society can flourish without culture, and no development is sustainable without it. I am particularly grateful to Her Excellency President Park for her personal commitment to this vision. Her recent speech to the Davos World Economic Forum in January on the importance of culture and the creative economy as a pillar of a new paradigm for sustainable development is very inspiring. And I thank Korea for taking this message across the world at a time where the international community is shaping a new global agenda for sustainability to follow 2015 Millennium Development Goals. So, dear young friends, in 2012, UNESCO was honored to be associated with the 250th anniversary of the birth of the great philosopher Chong Yang-yong, also known as Tasan. In his admonition on governing the people, Tasan spoke of public servants as scholar officials, noting the need for discretion, for honesty, for pragmatism, for a commitment to continual learning. I think this wisdom still holds true, and it is especially relevant for you as students about to embark on diplomatic careers. We face many challenges today, but there are solutions to be found. They lie in your creativity and imagination, in your commitment to solidarity, to building a better world for all. They lie, I believe, in the humanism which is at the heart of Korean society, in the teaching of Hongik Ingan, to live and work for the benefit of all mankind, which is the defined purpose of education in your country. More than ever, the world needs today this spirit. We need also your new ideas and leadership, and you may rest assured UNESCO will accompany you as you move forward. I thank you for your attention.
I really thank you for your lecture, valuable to all the diplomat candidates. So now the Q&A session will follow this lecture. So feel free to raise your hands and ask some questions on the lecture.
Thank you, Madam Director General. Thank you for your very insightful lecture and great information. Diplomacy very important. You mentioned the World Conference on Education, which is to be held, hosted by Korea's Ministry of Education and Asia's Big Center for Education for International Understanding. UNESCO Pacific 2 Center, where incidentally I worked before. In terms of the post-2015 development agenda, which is being discussed at the UN currently, how do you expect the next year's conference to contribute to that agenda?
I believe that the whole debate nowadays about education is extremely important because with particularly the initiative of the Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, launched a year and a half ago, almost 2 years, Education First as a global advocacy initiative, and everything that is happening nowadays in the world in terms of economic crisis and financial crisis in some parts of the world, the fact that the young population in the world is probably creating an entirely new environment in many countries, particularly in the developing countries, which is a new phenomenon. To have a world population of 50% below the age of 30 is an entirely new phenomenon in the world. The need to create jobs, the inequalities that are rising as probably a result of this crisis, the need also to create a very different environment in terms of mutual understanding. So all these are factors which create an environment where the need for education is growing worldwide. And I believe for the first time in humanity's history, every single probably country is putting education as its priority. And the role of the international community and those, I believe, partners of UNESCO and member states like Korea, who know very well the power of education, of rising a whole society, of creating opportunities, of also diminishing inequalities, is particularly important. So that is why we're working very hard to, on one side, to draw the lines of what had happened with the second Millennium Development Goal, education for all, and we are moving towards the World Education Forum next year to be held here in Korea. I think symbolically it is extremely important that Korea is hosting this forum. It's a strong message, I would say, about education itself. But then the question comes, what kind of education for the 21st century? And I think this is the big question that is in front of all of us. Last week, UNESCO launched our Global Monitoring Report on Education. You know that UNESCO is working on education. This is our 11th Global Monitoring Report, and every time we concentrate on some topic. This year's report is entitled Teaching and Learning, and it makes a very, I would say, profound assessment of education, focusing on teachers, focusing on quality education and on learning. And when your question also was about the post-2015 agenda, I believe that here it's extremely important to put an emphasis on some very profound analysis of what is happening in education in the different countries. Until now, we have been focused on access, of let's put kids in school. And it was very important, and we still have 57 million all across the world of children which are out of school. In some countries, it is a huge, I would say, challenge, because it's a challenge for the rural areas, for the remote areas, for marginalized communities, for girls. So access to school still is a bottleneck for many countries. But the report makes a very deep analysis of the statistics, because sometimes statistics is misleading. With a very poor quality of education, 250 million young people across the world cannot read and write, although the majority of them have passed through a formal education. So we have to look at the quality of education also. And the last, I think it's not least important, when we speak about quality education, we have to see about what kids are learning in terms of values, in terms of whether they focus on the questions about rights, whether they could know about sustainable education for sustainable development, whether they know about how to protect the environment, whether they know about how to live together in peace and tolerance. And for many countries and multicultural societies, this still is a challenge. So that is why the, as we call it, education for global citizenship is becoming ever more important. And we are extremely happy that the UNESCO and the National Commission of Korea already started some thinking about that. Already we have held an important conference on that matter. We are moving forward also, and I hope next year World Education Forum will look at this matter. And one word also about another important aspect, speaking about the post-2015 agenda. And this is about culture. And when we say culture, I say culture in a broad sense of its term. Culture as a creative industries, culture as creativity in general, and I think culture as creating jobs, culture as a binding force in a society, culture as identities, as heritage, tangible, intangible, culture also as a force of understanding among different communities. So I believe that we will miss a huge historic opportunity if we don't put a culture as enabler during the sustainability debate for the post-2015 agenda. It is not an objective, but it is an important factor in creating sustainability in every society. And I think, and I would like once again to express my high appreciation to President Park's vision about culture, putting culture also into the center of development and creativity. With her recent also important speech in Davos, speaking about the new Davos consensus and putting creativity also within the global economic context. I think it's extremely important to put there additional factors to the economic and financial. And this is why I believe we share this vision of changing the paradigm of sustainability and sustainable development. And the debate in New York already, and with all the advocacy that we have been doing and support of many countries that share this vision, including the Republic of Korea, already there is a working group in New York working on culture and development. We have held important, I would say, events. We have held last year, for the first time, a special session of the General Assembly on Culture and Development. We have held an important conference in Hangzhou in China on culture and development, and another new special session of the General Assembly on the 5th of May this year will be held also in New York. So there is a wide understanding about this importance. So I believe if we take into account these factors from the perspective of UNESCO, we will have a solid, I would say, and balanced post-2015 agenda. I'm not concentrating, there are other issues, of course, that UNESCO is working in the area of sciences, of water management. I just come from Berlin, where we have had an important meeting of the Scientific Advisory Board that the Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has established. He had confirmed to UNESCO and to me also to chair this. We just opened it in Berlin 2 days ago. So there is a broad, I would say, involvement of UNESCO according to our mandate into the soft power of sustainability and the United Nations. And I think this is particularly important nowadays, where we want to shift and to add to some major security issues, the soft power of what we consider also important for sustainability.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your appreciation of Korean culture and for visiting us. You mentioned that the culture as an ultimate source of power and diplomacy. And I would like to ask about that aspect of culture that recently Korea listed Xinjiang as a World Heritage. But several years ago, as you mentioned, that Korea always has been active listing the Korean heritage as a world heritage, but several occasions that created international controversies with other countries. I think that deals with the ownership of culture, like the question of who owns the culture, especially in tangible world cultural heritage. There is a question how a country can exclusively own one culture disregarding others. Of course, the nature of culture is not national, but the listing of culture can be seen as a national asset. So how UNESCO perceive this unintended political controversy among countries regarding the ownership of culture, and how the UNESCO prevents such controversy in the future?
It's a very interesting question, because I think, and you rightfully said that interesting angle that culture is very often transboundary, but the listings, as you said, according to our conventions, is very much limited also to the territories. And I think it's a new phenomenon kind of is coming, because there is a renewed interest on behalf of almost all our member states, I would say worldwide, towards culture and heritage and identities, which come to the front line sometimes of world politics. And unfortunately, in some parts of the world, we have seen that destruction in Mali, in recently the destruction of a an explosive, the Islamic Museum in Cairo, in Egypt, or in Syria, the destruction, which is very much, of course, to our concern that we are as a United Nations agency that has to protect the culture and heritage. We are trying to be an objective and also to be guardians of heritage, irrespective of what are the belongings and otherwise. This is our how we solve this issue. Of course, it's member states. UNESCO is intergovernmental. It's member states, but I think there is an overwhelming understanding and drive to. In cases where a particular monument or culture is shared by several, we encourage multi-holders, as we say, multilateral submissions of sites to be protected, or to have the more cooperation international around such protection. And we always encourage dialogue. Bilateral or multilateral around the protection. And I think in many cases we have been successful, because we do believe that protection of heritage and culture should not be viewed, and in any case UNESCO should not be viewed as creating a controversy or divisions. And just on the opposite, we think that we have to bring together countries and societies around some idea of the importance of this protection. We have many examples about it. We have examples of recent, and I hope this year the World Heritage Committee will inscribe 6 countries in Latin America, the Chapacñan, the route of the Incas, which is combining the efforts of 6 countries in Latin America around their joint history of a very proud and ancient and very rich the history of the Incas. And it was not a very easy work to be done, because you have to overcome some bilateral controversies which are not linked necessarily with this issue, but on the other political. You have to harmonize some procedures and the way local communities work. You have to harmonize legislation. This work has lasted for the last, I think, more than 8 years, and this year the World Heritage Committee will discuss this issue in order to take it up. Not to speak, of course, about some controversial heritage which is in disputed areas. I'm talking about the old town of Jerusalem, the old part of Jerusalem, and some others. So these are, so to say, 2 different examples for how it should be. But on our part, on the side of the World Heritage Center, we are always encouraging countries to work together so that heritage really is seen, as it is in the World Heritage Convention written, to increase the spirit of dialogue and mutual understanding. So, and I think it is also in the spirit of the way the World Heritage Committee is working that this is being done. Equally for the intangible heritage. Intangible heritage is very much, I would say nowadays, interested in countries working together, and we have seen that in some cases a certain tradition has been inscribed, like Navruz, for example, which is inscribed on the list of intangible heritage, and now we see other countries which have not been at the beginning on board of it, because some of them have not ratified the convention or felt excluded. Now they're joining. So there is always a possibility of countries joining further on in support of some of these. This is our, so to say, soft power also of encouraging countries to work together and to join forces in recognizing some common cultural, traditional heritage.
This box. Sorry, on the third row in the middle. Yes, use your microphone, please.
Hello, nice to meet you. And first of all, welcome to Korea, and thank you for your insightful and helpful lecture today. Now, I would like to ask a question. And as you mentioned in your lecture, Korea boasts of many cultural heritages and the history of philosophy and ideas. And I would like to hear your opinion on how these cultural heritages and traditional ideas of Korea can contribute to the world.
I think they're already contributing, but just to give one example, I did mention it in my speech. At UNESCO we have several prizes which are really, I would say, important. They have marked UNESCO, and King Sejong Prize is one of those, for literacy, is one of those prizes that are not only an opportunity once again to recall these very humanistic, I would say, ideas of, I would say, one of your prominent national, I would say, heroes and kings who not only created the alphabet, but who really launched this idea about the importance of education, the importance of knowledge in our society, and the fact that we are taking this I would say these ideas and this prize and moving it also and encouraging also other countries, spreading the same ideas to other countries, is practically taking from your wisdom, the wisdom of your history and your tradition, and moving it also to the other parts of the world. So I think the fact also that Korea is a country where you are very attached to your heritage and your culture, but you're a very modern country. You're a country that is on the cutting edge of science and technology. You're on the cutting edge also of creativity, of design, of new creative industries. I think also it's a good example of how you can reconcile modernity with history and heritage. You're not destroying your heritage. You do not want moving into the modern age, forgetting about your identity. I think this is an excellent example, and it should be, and we're encouraging also other countries to do the same. I think many societies struggle with this kind of reconciliation, and in some countries it's a tension. They cannot cope with the pressure of modernity. Either they want to forget about, or they don't want to enter into the modern range because they are kept. So I think this balance, this example of this, I call it reconciling the two, is extremely important, and I think that is why your country is a good example for others to follow.
We have about 10 minutes, so last question. Yes, please.
Madam Secretary General, first of all, it is a great honor for me to meet with you and hear from you in person. And I'd like to ask you a question regarding East Asian education. Recently, as you know, among East Asian countries, historical disputes are intensifying, and it is very concerning for Korea because education based on historical distortion can have an adverse impact on future generation and future relations among East Asian countries. And in my opinion, it is also considered UNESCO because UNESCO emphasizes the importance to establish peace in the minds through education. So I wonder how UNESCO perceives recent historical disputes and historical disputes among East Asian countries, and in your opinion, what kind of role does UNESCO can play in resolving and mediating East Asian countries through education?
Well, I think this question is very much linked also to some of the previous questions, and I think that what is important is to encourage countries to have, as we call it, to be more literate about the history of the others, and also to try to find ways of, in some cases, we have done in many parts of the world, we have done histories after a long work of common histories. The history of humanity has been a project that UNESCO started a long time ago. And we have drafted general histories of the Caribbean, general histories of Latin American countries. We are finalizing also general history of Africa. and we want to translate this also into textbooks. So this is really a process, and UNESCO is strongly encouraging dialogue among the common understanding of history. I know that it is not an easy process. It's a very sensitive also matter for many countries. I come also from a region, just to give a personal perspective. Southeast Europe has been and still is considered to be a very complicated region from the point of view of history. And we have had wars until 20 years ago in the former Yugoslavia. There were bloody wars, and there were also genocide attempts over the countries. And to be very frank, I could never have imagined that this could happen in Europe 50 years after the Second World War and just approaching the 21st century, but it did happen. And what UNESCO is doing there in the last 20 years, it is to try to find these common grounds of countries working together. UNESCO started a process of regular meetings of presidents and head of states talking about common culture. The 10 museums, national museums of the countries in Southeast Europe have for the first time organized a common exhibition which is called Imagining the Balkans, for the first time ever. And for the first time ever they're trying to take not what is dividing, but what is the common in the lifestyles of the people, in their traditions, in their histories. And I can tell you that this was an extremely difficult work. Even the exhibition was being done and showed, and two countries came together and said, no, we don't agree with this. So we had to negotiate also some of the last-minute arrangements. So we are encouraging really this dialogue. We are encouraging kind of a common understanding, and I think the Institute, UNESCO Center for Understanding, Mutual Understanding and Education is playing a hugely important role. I know we have a project in ASEAN countries also to work on probably some common ground, finding common understanding about history. So there are openings already in this particular area. It's a very tedious process. It's a process that requires a lot of commitment, a lot of hard work, of experts, of historians, and we are encouraging this work very much for common understanding and dialogue.
We have only 5 minutes, so if anybody who has a burning desire to ask a question, just one.
We may have to quick. I will answer quickly.
Mr. Park.
It is my honor to ask a question to Ms. Bokova, the Director General of UNESCO. My question could be an overlap question of a covered lecture, but I'd like to clarify and ask, what could be the biggest chance of Korea in its advancement into a higher and human society in terms of soft and smart power perspectives? As the Director General of UNESCO, do you have any advice or useful suggestions to Korea with this subject in compared with the successful countries or global exemplary models of such development shown already?
Well, I would say I'm very honored to give advice. I think your leaders know very well where to lead Korea and how to do it. And I think I would say wonderful vision and concept of President Park in expressing in Davos, and also kind of enlarging the vision about the economic and, as I said, financial factors in driving sustainability and putting creativity is a very wise, I would say, direction forward, because I really believe that what is very much needed today is unleashing the creativity and ingenuity of the human beings. We have seen that, and we know that, as we call it, our planet is under pressure, and it's not only about natural resources and the way we exploit them, but all the new technologies that are coming, all the new solutions are being born out of human creativity and human ingenuity, and something very different, something very new is happening the world economy and in the, I would say, globally and in societies. And I think Korea is very well poised to adopt this type of very forward-looking strategy. You have been very much into the investing in education, investing in quality, and now you want to make the next leap of unleashing this potential of creativity. I think this is the right strategy from my modest perspective. And also, of course, being already among the international donors and influencing, being involved in the world, I would say, development worldwide, in the region, in Africa, and otherwise, it gives a lot of possibility also for you to shape the global thinking about the future. So I think you're doing the right thing. I think you have here also, huh? Would you allow me to take this question?
First of all, thank you for your wonderful speech. Since we are running out of time, I have several questions, but I'll only ask one. Hearing your speech, I was very delighted and proud to be a future diplomat of Korea. You're mentioning the achievements of Korea in terms of soft power. However, there must be some shortcomings that Korea should overcome. So I want to ask your genuine opinion on the shortcomings of Korea's policy on soft power and how we should work on it. Thank you.
It's a very tricky question, huh? I think, Mr. President, you have here really an audience, huh? I cannot say that there are some shortcomings. Maybe you know better what are the... I rather see the, if you allow me, the emergence of this soft power concept as a process. I think we are not as yet, as a global community, everybody not very much, I would say, on board with this soft power. So I think what our advocacy is really to look at the soft power, if not at the same level as the hard power, as something which may change the world. Because, and that is why I said diplomacy is back into the picture, as we say. And I think it's a positive tendency. If you look at the last, let's say, 20 years, 25 years, there was a lot of belief only that through hard power you can solve problems, but we have seen that unfortunately this is not the case. And even in very hard security circumstances, if I may say so, I'm talking about Afghanistan or Mali for that matter. Let's take, for example, Afghanistan. I believe that, and I visited Afghanistan last year, I believe that education for Afghanistan is a security issue nowadays. Because if we don't provide education, if we don't give this literacy to people, if we don't create conditions for development, for betterment of their life, for taking them, so to say, understanding what development is all about, just security measures will fail because this society needs to be developed. And we have seen an enormous progress in terms of literacy, of education in this, of education of women, empowering also women and communities. So education and soft power is becoming a security issue for this country. Or what we are doing in Mali, for example, by protecting heritage and restoring. Because this is our response to extremism. If we don't give the local communities this respect and empowering them to protect their identity and their heritage, they will be destroyed by extremism. So this is, from the other point of view, our response to extremism. So that is why I think globally, overall, we still need to work a lot in order to give the proper place of the soft power on the world stage. And I think this is the right time to do it. And if Korea supports, for example, this vision in New York, I mean globally, of the link between culture and development, Korea will, I believe also, will promote globally this understanding about the soft power, your own understanding, but you will take the message globally. So I think, and I'm sure that Korea will do it, listening to your president. So, as I say, this is not some kind of a gaps or shortcomings. This is rather an evolution of an idea which is strongly supported by Korea, and I hope Korea will defend it globally.
There should be many questions, but unfortunately we should call it off. So I thank you, Madam Director General, for giving us her insights based upon her long-time expertise. I'm glad to inform all of you present here today that the Korean government this time awards Madam Bokova, Sugyeonjang Pangwajang, the Order of Diplomatic Service Merit for her contribution to Korea. Congratulations again. So give a big hand to Madam Bokova for a valuable lecture today. Thank you.
I'm very honored by this. I'm very honored by this. Thank you very much.